It's just after 4 o'clock in London and 7 o'clock in Muscat and Nizwa. We are now live from the Royal Geographical Society in London. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. On behalf of the Oman UK group, it gives me great pleasure, with my colleagues Dr. Roderick Dutton, Sean Nelson and Robert Baldwin, to give you all a very, very warm welcome to this, the 5th Oman Natural Heritage Lecture. We have members from all over the world watching us. It is a pleasure to have you with us. A warm welcome to members of the Royal Geographical Society, to the Geological Society of Oman, the Anglo-Omani Society, Earthwatch, and many other NGOs who are watching from all over Europe, Middle East, and many other countries. Recent countries just logging on are Brunei, Singapore, Australia, my country, Kenya, and a recent sign up from Denver, Colorado. All welcome. A special welcome to my many colleagues in the Sultanate of Oman who are with us tonight. Really lovely that you're here with us. So although the RGS Lecture Theatre is empty due to the COVID storm, we can feel your presence with us. We are here with us. And we hope that you have a really enjoyable evening. Thank you for being with us. Wherever you are in the world, please now join us as we step onto our large magic carpet. There's room for all. To whisk us off to the wonders of the Sultanate of Oman. Our annual lectures focus on Oman's natural heritage and the pioneering work being done by a new generation of field scientists committed to collecting geographical knowledge about the Sultanate's rich, diverse, and beautiful environment. Sadly, this year, we're not all able to be together here in London, as we did last year for the talk about Oman's botanical heritage by Doctors Leila Al-Houthi, Khalid Al-Fasi, and Anat Petzelt. But we are all together online. And I'd like to thank all 600 individuals plus who have joined us via Eventbrite and are here with us in spirit. Please imagine being in this historic lecture theatre with me now, the London meeting place for those collecting and understanding geographical knowledge for a better tomorrow. Every year, Prince Michael supports our annual Heritage Lecture, here in 2018 with Dr. Saif Al-Shaksi and speakers of the Oman Marine Science Lecture on screen now. Hello, Ada. Hello, Suad. Nice to see you. This year, His Royal Highness has sent a message of welcome from Kensington Palace. Here it is now.
I'm very sad not to be able to join you tonight at the Royal Geographical Society for the 5th Oman Natural Heritage Annual Lecture, being broadcast live to the world from both Muscat and London. I know I'll be missing an important update by our colleagues from the Geological Society of Oman about the diversity and beauty of the geology and caves of the Sultanate. I have fond memories of travelling through the distinctive mountains surrounding the Sharqiya Sands as a member of the Royal Geographical Society's survey team in the 80s. Tonight you'll be getting an update on recent discoveries by scientists in Oman and their pioneering fieldwork to safeguard Oman's geology for future generations. I wish you and your distinguished colleagues from Oman a most enjoyable and successful evening as you now broadcast this lecture online for the world to learn more of Oman's very special geological heritage.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. We really appreciate your support, and we hope you'll be with us this time next year, inshallah. This year, Dr. Mohammed Al-Kindi and Mr. Nabil Al-Sakri will be speaking about their recent expeditions to share the wonders of the geology and caves in Oman. Our speakers are joined by Abdul Munaim Al-Zakwani and the Geological Society of Oman, who behind the scenes have been making the broadcast arrangements here in Muscat and Nizwa possible. We are delighted that following their talks, we will have a Q&A session, and Dr. Mohammed and Mr. Nabil, you'll be able to ask them questions about anything to do with their talk today. I'm sure you will have questions about their interest in geology and their caves they've been exploring. If you'd like to submit a question, please use the YouTube chat box here, to the right of your screen, at any time through the talks, and we will present them to Mohammed and Nabil during the Q&A session this evening. You can also ask questions on Twitter using the hashtag #OmanGeology2020. Please do take this opportunity to ask our fantastic experts your questions. Before we fly to Oman, I'd like to express our thanks to the Anglo-Omani Society here in London for their generous support, an addition and valued help from the Geological Society of Oman, the National Field Research Centre for Environmental Conservation, the Oman Embassy, the Geographical Magazine, the Oman Cave Exploration Group, and Encounter Edu. Each year, we welcome readers the Geographical Magazine, and I'd like to thank Katie Burton, the editor, and her staff for all they do to support field science activities in the Sultanate. Ladies and gentlemen, please be ready to glimpse the future by looking at the past, as collectively we endeavour to complete the geographical audit of our precious planet. And in so doing, to witness the important work being done by dedicated scientists in the Sultanate of Oman. Now to introduce our two speakers this year, Dr. Mohammed Al-Kindi and Mr. Nabil Al-Sakri. Mohammed is a keen and active geologist who has worked with PDO and led many geological expeditions and research groups in Oman. He's also the author and of the respected book of Oman's geology, The 800 Million Year Story of the Land and Life Evolution in Oman. Nabil is a school teacher from Jebel Akhdar and an experienced and active member of the Oman Cave Exploration Group, and currently completing a new book on the caves of Oman, which we look forward to. Both will now be reporting on their recent discoveries, and we have a new film of their work which will be premiered tonight. We look forward to that. We are delighted Mohammed and Nabil have agreed to be our speakers for the 5th Oman Natural Heritage Lecture. Our good friend, Dr. Saif Al-Shaksi, will be giving the vote of thanks at the end. Now, over to you, Mohammed and Nabil, in Nizwa and Jebel Akhdar for your talk on the unique wonders of the geology and caves of the Sultanate of Oman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nigel. It's a great pleasure for us, Nabil and I, to be here with you tonight to present glimpses of the story of life and land in Oman. It's a great story. It's very fascinating. It's inspiring. It inspires scientists and young generations to study other places in the world that have or share the same story. Before we move to presentations, Nabil and I prepared a short film that will take you through a journey starting from North Oman to South Oman. It will show you some of the marvels, cave marvels, fossils, landscapes, as well as ancient climatic history on the land of Oman. We really hope that you enjoy watching this film. land of enchanting geology and amazing caves. It has this wonderful character of being able to record important events of the history of Earth and its inhabitants. The fossils here are unique, amazing, unmatchable variety of caves you can explore, beautiful wadis and canyons, different types of coast. Some are mountainous, sandy, or lagoonal. They are really world-class. Mountain terrains are fabulous. The desert has its wonders and mysteries. On this land, there is a lot to discover. There is a lot to research. There is a lot to add to science.
We've been exploring and documenting caves for over 5 years in Oman. Every day, our passion for this dangerous but very fascinating adventures increases. It's really hard to stop. The Oman Cave Exploration Team has documented hundreds of caves in Oman during this time. We will publish at least 100 of these in a book very soon, but we will not stop at this point. We know that there are many others waiting for us out there.
Oman is divided to various geological terrains. Each terrain has its marvels and attractions. The main ones are Al-Jabal Akhdar and Jabal Shams. Musandam and Jabal Abyad are also amazing in the north. There are also the Dufar Mountains in the south. Between the north and the south mountains lies a vast desert plain. Wind and water sculptured over millions of years, rocks and land into amazing shapes.
When we go caving, we have to be well equipped. No room for mistakes. All gear should be checked and prepared. Sometimes we walk long distance carrying heavy bags, but the reward can be worth it. For new undocumented caves, the entrance can be mysterious. We plan and ensure the safety measures are in place. We start by removing any potentially falling rocks. We drill for anchors and bolts. Check the system is good and install the ropes. All sorts of mysteries can be waiting you down there, including these and loads of these.
Perhaps the most famous part of the chain of Jabal Akhdar is the Mountain of the Sun. Jabal Shams, standing more than 3 kilometers above sea level and exposing hundreds of meters of carbonate rocks. The rocks that we see here are similar to the rocks that we see in our petroleum reservoirs in the subsurface of Oman. This is the effect of tectonics, the earth plate movements. On its sides, this mountain chain reveals an integrated system of valleys and some beautiful villages. Amazingly, at this high point, different fossils of sea animals can be seen. Shallow sea corals, fish bones and teeth, sponges.
We listed about 40 major caves in Al-Jabal Al-Akhdar.
The most famous are Hail al-Diyar, Amar Cave, and As-Saqf. There are many more, but we had to choose. And they have beautiful cave formations. Some were used as houses. We make maps and sections of caves. And in many cases, 3D maps also. This is a large cave room. You enter from top. You can see all the details of the cave. We have amazing team members. Some prepare the routes, like Nabil Al-Zakwani, the coach. During our long trips, we camp. In the morning, we make sure we have a good breakfast. Tea and coffee are important.
Al-Jabal Al-Abyad, or the White Mountain, is located in the northeast corner of Oman. The mountain stands about 2,000 meters above sea, overlooking the Sea of Oman. It is composed of light-colored carbonate rocks. That's why it's called the White Mountain, or Jabal Abyad. These rocks are prone to dissolution and weathering. Therefore, large cave systems form. One of the most famous caves here is Majlis al-Jinn, one of the largest cave chambers in the world. Here you see the top entrances of the cave. The chamber is about 150 meters deep and more than 300 meters long.
The caves in Al-Jabal Abyad include beautiful speleothems that formed during wet climatic periods over thousands of years.
Oman's world unique wonder, the best exposed oceanic plate in the world. It was pushed by tectonic forces on top of the land of Oman some 90 million years ago, carrying with it details of the ocean floor with its volcanics and colorful deposits. Since the end of the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, the ophiolite provided Oman with copper ore. This copper was exported to Mesopotamia, modern Iraq today, and other places in the world. They called Oman as Majan, the land of copper. The mining was done in very harsh conditions. Ancient tombs and castles across Oman stand as a witness of this amazing civilization. The process of ophiolite emplacement and its relevant movement led to the formation of amazing structures in the Oman mountains.
The Dhofar Mountains are located in South Oman. They are cut by massive cliffs on the southern side. From winter to summer, the mountain undergo a massive transformation of climate. This is because of the summer monsoon from the Indian Ocean. A lot of rain falls. As a result, the area gets covered by a green lush. The carbonate units here dissolve and form massive sinkholes and caves. Many small caves and shelters contain ancient scripts and drawings.
The desert of Oman includes a wide variety of wonders. The rock garden in east central Oman is one of them. Weathering and erosion-shaped rocks into amazing shapes. Also, these beautiful pink lakes that form when the salinity of water increases. It increases multiple times more than that of seawater, promoting certain types of bacteria, algae, and fungi to flourish, causing the production of a pink pigment. Sand dunes cover a large area of central Oman. The composition of these sand dunes vary. Those rich in carbonate grains tend to be white in color. Deposits of ancient lakes are found within sand dunes. Around them, humans once lived, since thousands of years ago. They left the tools they used scattered around these lakes and springs to tell us about their lifestyles. The sand dunes and desert plains hide also amazing marine fossil sites, as well as fossils of petrified wood in grooves induced by glacial events, probably some 300 million years ago or so. They also left behind exposures of very old rock deposits and structures. One can see here the pyramids with the Sphinx sculptured by wind. In such harsh conditions, oases and water springs provide a refuge for people. People in Oman were experienced fishermen since at least the Neolithic, several thousands of years ago. This was only a short presentation of the geological wonders and cave marvels of Oman. There is a lot to share, there is a lot to find, there is a lot to discover here. Thank you very much for watching. We will move now to presentations. There are two presentations. The second one is presented by Nabil, and it's about caves in Oman. The first one is about the evolution of land of Oman through various geological times, from the oldest to the youngest. I will now hand over to Nabil. Nabil will present the Sultanate of Oman is located on the eastern side of Arabia. It has diverse landscapes, from Al-Hajar Mountains in the north,
which includes Musandam in the northwest and ends close to the Wahiba Sand or the Sharqiya Sand on the northeast, to Al-Huquf area on the central eastern part of Oman. It witnessed over millions of years how the Earth's vitality and dynamic processes influenced the diversity of landscapes and organisms. Through the Dhofar Mountains, located in South Oman and directly overlook the Indian Ocean. The Rub' al-Khali Desert, a vast desert plain that starts in the southwest corner of Oman. Through the central vast desert plains and Sabha, known to be one of the best places in the world to find meteorites that struck Earth thousands of years ago. The geological map of Oman shows a wide variety of igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks exposed predominantly on the mountain chains on north, east, and south. As for tectonics, or the movements of Earth continents and oceanic plates, Oman has moved over millions of years from the equator to the South Pole and back to the north of the equator, where it continues to move slowly to the north today, as Arabia separates from Africa at a rate of few centimeters a year along the Red Sea. Oman and the Earth in general reached its present form through 4 distinctive phases or time periods in the evolution of the Earth. This took more than 4,500 million years of history since the formation of our planet and its solar system. The first period is known as the Precambrian, or the ancient life. This is the earliest period and the longest part of the Earth history. It covers more than 85% of the time period of the Earth. The Paleozoic, or the old life, where complex life forms of animals and plants become prominent, and shallow seas and land developed widely more than in the Precambrian area. We also have the Mesozoic, or the middle life, where life diversified rapidly and giant monstrous animals roamed the earth until at least 60 million years ago. We then have the Cenozoic, or the new life, the era that we live in today, where mammals became dominant and humans later appeared on Earth. I will go through these eras now, briefly highlighting the main signs of them in Oman. During the Precambrian, more than 540 million years ago, Oman and the rest of Arabia were sutured together to form the Arabian continent. Now, this suturing process resulted in the formation of many intrusive igneous dikes. But the climate during the entered very cold phases, transforming the earth to almost a snowball. Nevertheless, and despite this hostility, life was continuously emerging and evolving in shallow seas, forming first primitive organisms of single-celled bacteria that later developed into complex forms of life. And Oman has witnessed all of this. The rocks here record nearly the full story of the Precambrian. As a matter of fact, one of the oldest evidence of the emergence of animals with their multiple cells on the planet more than 600 million years ago is actually found in Oman. The subsurface rocks extracted from Oman also defined the boundary between the Precambrian and the Paleozoic some 540 million years ago. These are igneous and metamorphic layers from the Precambrian. They represent the basement of the Arabian Plate. The intruded igneous dikes, which are dark in color, cut the basement rocks in a jebel or a mountain known as Jebel Qahwan in the northeastern part of Oman. Some of these rock units might be more than 1,000 million years old, 1 billion years old. Here are layers of sedimentary rocks from the Precambrian in Al-Huquf in east central Oman. The domes that you see in the middle of the picture, where the black arrow is, are known as stromatolites. You can also see wave ripples in the rocks below them. Now, stromatolites are formed of microbial mats of bacteria. They grow bigger into domes. They were prominent in the Precambrian. The size and shapes of these domes is linked to the environment in which they formed. Large domes, for example, form in open marine environments where waves and tides are active, whereas smaller and flatter domes form in restricted marine environments. Oman has a large diversity of stromatolite domes. This is a summary of life in the Paleozoic era, more than 250 million years ago, as recorded by fossil evidence from Oman, showing the evolution of animals and plants throughout the Paleozoic. You see trilobites on the top right corner, one of the most famous animals that evolved during the Paleozoic. You see primitive fish, bivalves, corals, gastropods, signs of various types and forms of life in shallow marines. They significantly evolved during this period. As well, you see small plants emerging into large trees in this era. The systems in water and on land evolved and supported the appearance of more diverse and complex life forms on Earth. Overall, the Paleozoic began with the biggest radiation of life forms on Earth or known throughout the Earth's history, and it also ended with the largest mass extinction of life the Earth has ever witnessed. The rocks of the early Paleozoic in Oman are very colorful, mainly because of the alternation between marine and land deposits. Later in the Paleozoic, the land of Oman moved close to the South Pole, where it experienced very cold climatic conditions. The grooves that you see here are made by ice scratching the surface of rocks some 300 million years ago. They actually indicate the direction of the ice flow. Here are examples of animal fossils from the Paleozoic from Oman. You can see trilobites on the right top corner. Several new species of trilobites were found in Oman. Fossils of fish scales and head shields from Oman on the bottom right corner, dated to be around 450 million years old, representing some of the oldest fish fossils in the world. We see at the middle a slab of rock with different traces of trilobites, and fossils of corals on the left, as well as bivalves. They also belong to the Paleozoic. These are examples of the Paleozoic plant and tree fossils from Oman. The rocks of Oman have preserved in details much of the evolutionary line of plant life. The earliest known record for the appearance of early plants on Oman goes back to about 470 million years ago, the early Paleozoic. This is actually known to be one of the oldest records on Earth of the emergence of plants. The record of plant evolution in Oman includes a wide variety of spores, pollens, roots, leaves, and even large tree trunks of different plant types from the Paleozoic. We are now moving to the Mesozoic. This is a summary of life in Oman during the Mesozoic, some 70 million years ago, with different types of dinosaurs crocodiles, turtles, and various trees, including flowering ones, living on its surface. Most of these were extinct at the end of the Mesozoic during a mass extinction event. By then, the oceanic plate, or what is known as the ophiolite, was already emplaced on the land of Oman. So how was the ophiolite emplaced on top of Oman? Well, the oceanic crust or plate of an ancient ocean located north of Oman and known as the Neo-Tethys Ocean started to close. As a result, this plate was, with all of its details, deep oceanic sediments and shallow carbonates were pushed on top of the northern surface of Oman. During this period, the oceanic crust traveled hundreds of kilometers before it reached its final destination to settle on the surface of Oman, carrying with it many secrets about the life forms, geological processes, and environments in the deep oceans. Today in Oman, we can see various rock sequences from this ancient ocean, including pillow lavas and sheeted dikes that emerged from hot magma chambers located in the spreading zones of these oceans. As the oceanic plates spread and open, dikes, as seen on the right of this slide, open and feed the overlying pillow lava, as shown on the left, with hot igneous magma emerging from a depth of several kilometers below the surface of the ocean. Today in Oman, you can also see fossils of hydrothermal vents known as black smokers. These are formed many kilometers below the surface of the ocean, along massive cracks on the Earth's surface, exposed in the rocks of Oman. These sediments that traveled to Oman have been influenced by a lot of deformation. They suffered a lot of movement, and as a result, this caused the formation of folds and fractures in them. The fossils of the Mesozoic in Oman are very diversified. They include many different types of marine fossils, well preserved since tens of millions of years. From left to right, you see here fossils of deep sea burrows from the deep ocean, resembling the shape of a honeycomb. You can also see fossils of bivalves known as rudists. These once lived in shallow seas before becoming extinct at the end of the Mesozoic. You can see also here fossils of plants, some of which might be for the first types of palm trees that appeared on Earth. And at the end of the slide on the right, you see fossils of a fossil of dinosaur bone, some of these dinosaur bones might be belonging to a new genus of dinosaurs. We now move to the Cenozoic, or the new life. This era started 66 million years ago. It is the era that we currently live through. The mammals that survived the mass extinction event of the end of the Mesozoic soon diversified into various shapes and sizes. Elephants, for example, appeared at the beginning of this era. However, diversification was not limited to mammals. Birds, amphibians, and smaller reptiles also changed and grew in size throughout the Cenozoic. And obviously, at the end of this era, humans also appeared at the picture of life on Earth. Now, in Oman, the story of the Cenozoic is well captured in its exposed rock sequences. Fossils of a new genus, for example, of an extinct type of small elephants was found in Oman, in the Dhofar Mountains. Because of that, it is known today as Omanetherium dhufarensis, after the place it was found in. Now, the suffix therium actually means wild animal or a beast. You can see here a schematic of how the animal looked like. and its size as well, with a person dressed like an Omani standing beside it. I will now hand over to Nabil. Nabil will present examples of some of the important caves that we found in Oman in the last few years.
Good evening. My name is Nabil Sakhri. I'm from Oman Caving Team. It's a great pleasure for me to present for you today examples of some amazing caves from Oman. I will give examples for 4 different types of caves. Here is 1 and 4 caves forming in a carbonate rock in North and South Oman. The 2 and 3 is for caves and ancient mines made by a human to mine copper and salt. It's good to mention that Oman has hundreds of caves. They have amazing cave deposits. Here we'll start with the type 1, the big caves in carbonate rock in the North Oman. The first example for this type of caves is Kittat al-Sawirat cave, a cave that was recently documented and mapped by Oman Caving Team. This picture was posted by an Omani photographer, Yusuf, showing water gushing from a small cave after heavy rain. We tried to find the place where the water enters this cave system from the top using satellite images. After seeing that last picture, we conducted a scouting trip with the help of locals and found a potential top entrance of the downstream cave. We come back later with a group of Omanis and prepared all the caving gear to explore the cave. We found amazing cave deposits and managed to map the cave in a good details. And you can see in a picture how big is the deposit inside the cave. This is a map of the top part of the cave with 3 main vertical drops of 80 meters, 35 meters, and 12 meters depth. The second example is Hel al-Diyar cave in Al-Jabal Akhdar. The cave starts with a small opening followed by about 35 vertical drop. The team worked to lock the cave from top to protect it. This cave has a beautiful cave deposit and it can be developed for tourism and adventures. We prepared 2D maps and 3D surveys of the cave. The cave is formed of 2 chambers connected by a passage. Here is the chamber 1 and the other one is here. It's connected by a passage. The second type of caves is ancient copper mines in the ophiolite sequence. Some of these caves contain high percentage of copper and even gold, with the mines as shown by the chemical analysis samples taken from the caves. The caves extend for tens of meters inside the mountain, where the mining took place in harsh conditions. The mines contain snakes. That's why we call the cave or a mine the snake cave. We made a 3D survey of these caves. Their type is for salt mines in central Oman. This is a picture of the salt deposit in central Oman. The mine can be seen in the bottom left corner of the picture. They were mined until the last mid-20th century, and the salt was sold in the local markets. A picture of one of the caves that was used for salt mining in central Oman. The fourth example is from caves in Dhofar. The caves in Dhofar form interconnected underground systems. They often have pools of decomposed organic matter that produce methane and other gases. breathing can be issue in some of these caves. Tiq line or cave is a massive cave system also. During heavy rain, the underground system gets blocks. After hours or a few days, the water discharged suddenly from the line. The caves in Dhofar are also famous for their ancient drawings and scripts, indicating a long history of the area and showing the importance of caves for people who lived in this part of Oman. Thank you. I leave you now with a short video clip showing photos from the caves I presented.
Shukran, Mohammed Nabil. We're blown away, absolutely blown away. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay, wherever you are in the world. Mohammed and Nabil, you truly rock, as my children would say. Not only did we enjoy your huge story of the Mesozoic and the Cenozoic, and learning more about dinosaurs, black smokers, the early plants, those early plants, most incredible. And who would have thought that elephants and a new species of elephant, Omanitherium dofarensis, could be found in Oman. And Nabil, you certainly have given us a tour de force of the caves and all you do to get down into those caves. How brave you are. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the glimpse of Oman's geological paradise above and below the ground and listened at the comfort of your own homes. We now have about 15 minutes for questions. Thank you very much for sending these in to us. A reminder, do submit any final questions from the YouTube chat box on the right of your screen, or on the right of your screen up there, or via the hashtag Oman Geology 2020. And we will answer them if we have time, and we of course can be in touch by email after the lecture. Dr. Mohammed and Mr. Nabil, can you hear me okay? In Nizwa and in Jabal Akhtar. Oh, Mohammed, it's nice to see you.
Hello, Dr. Nigel. Very nice to see you as well.
Congratulations on your most excellent presentations. Is Nabil able to join us?
Thank you very much. Nabil is still trying.
Okay.
Hopefully he will be able to join, but there is likelihood he will not be able, unfortunately.
I do apologize to all 800 of you around the world. We've had a few technical hitches tonight, but the whole of the lecture has been recorded and we'll be able to watch it in the future. I hope Nabil can join us because I know there are a few caving questions that will come his way. But the first questions are coming up now. And the first one that we've got coming up, which I knew would come up, is can you briefly describe, Mohammed, how you began to take an interest, your first interest in rocks, Mohammed, and where that all started?
Well, I guess the fact that if you live in Nizwa and you get brought up in Nizwa, it's very hard not to get attached somehow to mountains and rocks.
Yeah.
Because Nizwa is surrounded by 3 different types of rock sequences and mountains. And obviously, as children, we would go around and explore some of the wadis around us. So probably that started there. I never thought myself to be a geologist. As a matter of fact, for the most of my studies at school, I never even knew what geology exactly is. Probably it was a pure coincidence, actually, with the fact that I went to petroleum development Oman, and they kind of picked me to study geology as one of the core disciplines in PDO, petroleum development Oman. So they chose to send me to Aberdeen in North Scotland to study geology there.
Good place to go.
Because the department there was quite good. And then after I finished, I did my PhD. And when I started to study the rocks of one of the central mountains in the Al-Hajar Mountains in North Oman, that got me very much attached to mountains. And from there on, this was almost 15 or more than 15 years ago. I never stopped actually exploring mountains and some caves as well.
Well, we've really benefited from your tuition, and I think you'll have to say that Aberdeen is a really good university. I know your supervisor is watching today, and I know your colleagues from PDO are all watching too, as well. So thank you on that. And if anybody, the second question I've been asked is, if you wanted to join the Geological Society of Oman or the Oman Cave, the cave research, the cave exploration group, how do people do that? Can you just explain very briefly?
So as for the Geological Society of Oman, all what they need to do is to send them an email, and they can do that by accessing their website and send the email through the Contact Us icon. As for the caving team, we welcome all sorts of collaboration with studies and stuff. Currently, we're writing a book about the caves in Oman. It shall be ready within the next 2 months. It's already actually under editing now. It will be published outside Oman as well as inside Oman. So for those who are interested in any of the caves, either those listed in the book or others, we can facilitate, and we've done that in the past. We haven't actually done clear procedures for people to join the team. Hopefully we'll do that in the future. And as I said, we really welcome any kind of collaboration for various scientific purposes.
Thank you very much for that. I know there'll be many members who are watching, many people who are watching or have somebody in the family who may want to join you. Another question I've got here that comes from somebody who I know is interested in tourism in Oman. If you find a meteorite or a fossil when you go traveling as a tourist, what should we do about that? What is the regulations about, well, apart from photographing it, but can you just say that if we find something, should we do?
Okay, so if you go actually hiking in mountains in Oman, it's almost impossible not to find fossils.
That's true.
There are loads of fossils, marine fossils, shallow marine fossils like corals, gastropods, bivalves, crinoids, other stuff, of shallow marine animals being distributed as fossils in these mountains. And most of these have been studied. So, leaving them behind you is a good idea. As for other special fossils, this would include, for instance, dinosaur bones, which are quite rare in Oman, elephant bones, which are restricted in very few places as well. Other ones that every so often get found as well here and there, but they're very rare, and it's really uncommon that people find these. So in all cases, if you find a fossil, you can submit it to the Natural History Museum in the Ministry of Heritage and Tourism now, it's called. And that goes also the same for meteorites. And I need to highlight, as for meteorites, that there are thousands of meteorites, rock meteorites or iron meteorites here in Oman. They're very common, so people do find them a lot in the desert plain. You might want to leave them behind you, or otherwise submit them to the Natural History Museum, again in the same ministry. So that's the regulation, basically.
So the best thing would be to take a really good photograph and be able to locate it and send that to the museum, or even if they sent it to you, you could help with that.
Because indeed, Dr. Nigel, as you specified, it's always better to leave them behind you, because for meteorites, there are some specific ways of picking these samples and reporting them. And in many cases, it's better not to touch them with your bare hands.
I remember the many geodes.
So better to leave them behind.
I remember the many geodes we came across when we were traveling in the empty quarter area, all over the place, and we left them there.
Yes,
so another interesting question.
Yes.
So another question, if we must move on, another question. This is to do with the bats, incredible footage of the bats in the caves. And the question is, did you identify the bats that were in the caves? And what effect do they have on the caves? And that's from Routledge Ivan. Thank you, Routledge. Did you identify the bats from the film, and what effect do you have on the caves?
Okay, as for bats, we don't have the experience to identify them specifically, although Nabil actually is very good in animals, mammals, and insects. He's done a lot of photography in that, so he usually recognizes the species or the types. There are many types in Oman. There are probably around 25 species of bats, including fruit bats, pipistrelle, what's so-called ghost bats, and so forth. Sometimes we identify them, with our very limited experience in that. But for the book, we plan to collaborate with one of the bat experts here in Oman to support us identifying them.
There's some good colleagues in the Office for the Conservation of the Environment who I know will be very pleased to help you there.
Absolutely. Yes.
And this is where earth scientists and life scientists have to become good friends in the field.
True.
So another question about, it was incredible to see the reptiles and snakes in the caves, another danger. A question has come in from Professor Ian Swingland, has commented about the Arabian leopards. And he's asked this question: have you seen evidence of these while working on your fieldwork, Mohammed?
No, not at all, actually. Although recently we've been told about a cave in Jabal Samhan, it's very inaccessible, and one of the locals promised us to take us to there, and it has been reported in that area. So we'll probably come across its, at least its traces.
Okay.
But we've seen other wild animals. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, we went to this cave, deep cave in Dhofar, near a big sinkhole called Tawaiter, and we saw loads of wolves living beside that cave, Arabian wolves. So there are hyenas, there are wolves, there are other wild animals living beside some of these caves, and they use some of them as a shelter, those which are accessible.
Very special. Of course, you could talk to our good friend Hadi Al-Hikmani if you wanted to know more about where the leopards are. One of your predecessors who spoke on this stage in 2016. Now, another good question has come in. An engineer has asked, how do you make sure there is no risk of H2S in caving, hydrogen sulfide? Oh.
That's a very good question. And we have instruments, we have tools, H2S detectors. We have also, meters that measure the level of oxygen, the level of CO2, the level of any combustible gases as well in caves. They would also measure, any bad air basically within these caves. And these tools have been very useful. And you can see that, when the two instruments start to alert or make sound, you can feel that there is bad air already there, yeah.
Thank you. During your talk, you spoke about the ophiolite story so well. Thank you very much for explaining that. I've often wanted to hear the full story. Thank you for that. Hafsa Garcia asks, when was the ophiolite first discovered and what is the scale? So the question from Hafsa is, when was the first ophiolite discovered in Oman? And what is the scale?
That's a good question. Well, basically, as for geologists, there were a number of geologists who visited Oman at least a century ago, back in 1906. But one of the most famous geologists who visited Oman in 1926 was George Lee. And George Lee identified a lot of these what's so-called alloctonous sequences, rock sequences, which were basically emplaced on top of Oman, so they came from somewhere else. And he quite correctly interpreted them to be, coming from somewhere else. And so he was one of the first people probably to identify the ophiolite. And he gave a quite precise interpretation of it. And he went then and made a PhD on some of the work that he did in Oman and other places as well. And there were other groups of geologists who came to Oman in the 1950s, 60s, and by the late 1960s, in between George Lee in the 1920s and 1960s, people started to bring other ideas of how the ophiolite existed in Oman. But by the end of the 1960s, it was confirmed that this was oceanic plate, basically, that was emplaced on top of Oman.
And it's been an attraction to geologists from all over the world ever since.
True. Yes. It's the best exposed oceanic plate. So if you study geology anywhere in the world, you have to be taught, you have to be told about it.
If I behave, will you take me to the Black Smokers? I'd love to see the Black Smokers, Mohammed, with you.
If you pay for the trip, just kidding. No, you'll be most welcome, Dr. Nigel, and everybody else as well,
Okay, the question.
Oman will be very happy to host anybody who wants to learn from the.
It would be lovely to be in the field with you. Questions keep coming in. It's fantastic. Abra Mohammed, how much of the Simele ophiolite has been affected by urbanization in Oman?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, there is obviously all this kind of competition between development and preservation. And I think in Oman, we've done quite good work with the help with many people around the globe. And I should mention here probably Professor Mike Searle and Dr. Alan Heward and many other people in the world. And sorry for missing other people. So we've identified, and maybe I should also mention Professor Subhi Nasr from Sultan Qaboos University. So they've done a lot of efforts to identify sites of scientific interest in Oman, including the ophiolite sequence. And throughout the years, we've worked to designate these places and protect them from development. However, saying this, it's hard not to find a place within the ophiolite which is not of scientific interest. But the ophiolite I shall say, probably, unfortunately for those who look to preserve it, has also host a lot of mining potential, like copper, gold and silver with the copper, and chromite, gabbro to be used as aggregates, and other possible commodities as well, which are under studies. So people want to develop these and produce them basically. So that there is that competition, but I think in Oman it's well managed, and we keep an eye to a lot of these sites every so often. So if there is any signs of developments, we alert the government. But the most important ones are well protected.
That's a very, very helpful reply. Thank you for that. I know there'll be more questions on that, but I think we're all very grateful, Mohammed, for the work that the Geological Society of Oman does on this. And I know that you're right in the thick of that, for which we're really grateful.
Thank you.
Another question, Jonathan Doron asks, what are the most serious risks to Oman geology of climate change, from climate change?
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to address this question. I'm sure some of the audience would be better to answer this. Probably coastal areas, if there is obviously, if the sea level is rising, there is a huge population in Oman as well as elsewhere in the world, obviously, living along the coast. So if there is climate change, this will be impacted as well. If the temperature rise, obviously, people living in the deserts might find it very difficult to bear the harsh weather conditions. And those living on top of mountains as well might feel the same. Again, I'm not the best person to answer this question, but these are just general thoughts that may come to any layman in this subject.
Well, we may have this discussion after the lecture. One of the big risks, of course, is the changing rainfall patterns in the Sultanate, and how those incredible images we saw of those big rainfalls, that's going to have a big impact on the landscape.
And cyclones, Dr. Nigel, as well. Cyclones, in the last decade or so, we had loads of cyclones in Oman. This was not so common in the past as now.
True.
So maybe this is one of the impacts of climatic change as well.
Understanding our place on a changing world. So another question, this is from Ahmed Al-Muruki, asks, were the caves originally karst landscapes before they were formed? Perhaps that you just sort of explain, the background on what we mean by karst.
So karstification is basically, I would say, any sizable cavity within the rock that is usually produced by dissolution. This is, an explanation I just brought from my mind. It might not be very precise, but that's my explanation of karsts or karstification, which usually are formed within carbonate rocks. So yes, as Ahmed asked, they usually small cavities or karsts, which may actually originate from what's so-called nodular features that can be often by fossils, burrows basically in the shallow seas. And as water circulate between these nodular features, they dissolve the carbonate, and eventually these get connected and form caves. Fractures, faults, they also work as facilitate basically or support this process. The matter of fact here in Oman is that almost all the carbonate caves that we see they form within or close within the proximity of fault plains. So faults are basically, in geological terms, are these cracks with displacement in the rocks, and they usually promote water circulation or fluid circulation, and therefore increase potential of dissolution and the formation of cavities.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Mohammed. The questions are really coming in, so we'll keep going. Alex Dilnott-Smith from Kent asks, what do you think are the biggest challenges to your research? Usually it says we need more money, but what do you think are the biggest challenges to your research, Mohammed?
I guess being lazy a bit. And there is a lot to research either in Oman or neighboring country. We just need to get our shoes on and start moving. Frankly speaking, there is no challenge I can think of there is plenty to explore here in Oman and in the region, as well as elsewhere in the world. We just need to be, more active and enthusiastic about, exploring and research.
Okay, well, I hope many young people watching tonight will say, I want to join you on your quest. Another question, comes from Ali. How often do you need to swim underwater with oxygen cylinders in submerged caves? So how often do you do any cave diving in Oman?
Okay, that's a very good question. Well, to start with, cave diving is one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous sport or exercise that you can do inside caves. It's very dangerous and it needs to be done by experts. We have attempted to do it, but not professionally, I shall say. It wasn't successful. If Nabil is here, he would be able to share his experience. I remember in one of the lakes, it was, it is life-threatening, I shall say. However, luckily, we have access to international divers, and I should mention here the name of Simon Cahill. Okay. Simon has been a great support in this, and he's part of our team as well. He doesn't live here in Oman, but he has very good communication with international cavers, and whenever we identify caves that require diving, we bring international divers, and we've done that in the past. It needs to be done more often here in Oman, and who knows, maybe very soon we'll get Omani cave divers. We have already very good Omani divers in the open sea and shallow seas. Very good, very professional. So maybe, I guess, with a bit of further training, they would be able to do cave diving as well.
I think a lot of cave divers would love to have the opportunity to come and do work in Oman.
Absolutely. No doubt about that.
And I know you've got a lot of good international friends here, but I thought it was a really interesting question. And there will be more and more cave diving done in the Sultanate. So, but you're quite right. Exceptionally dangerous. Really important to be 100% safe. So this is from Lara in Oxford. What is the most memorable, amazing experience you've had, Mohammed, while caving?
Okay, we had this, so back in March this year, when the pandemic was kind of spreading, getting serious, and lockdown started, we, among our team members, we thought, let's go caving in Dhofar, because we already had planned a trip for that. But none of them found it a good idea. So me and another person among the team and somebody else outside the team decided to join us. So we said, okay, well, let's go to Dhofar because we already had this planned and so on. So we descended one of the deep caves there in Dhofar. Probably it was not fully explored before. And the only two of us went, so out of three, because the third person was not a caver. Anyways, we went down after abseiling about 85 meters, and we found this beautiful room of beautiful cave deposits and speleothems. And my friend was exploring somewhere else in the cave, so I was really very happy to get inside this room, probably as the first person ever. And it's beautiful and full of bats as well. And I was surprised actually that bats for this specific cave were living quite deep. And but the room was very good. And in fact, when the bats were roaming inside the room, they used to, and somehow when they go around it, they make kind of music while moving between these cave deposits. And unfortunately, I didn't have a good camera then, but it was almost like somebody playing music inside this beautiful cave room full of crystals and being alone there. It was so nice.
That's just pure music, Mohammed. And that, of course, you've described in one, the joys of exploration. And what a responsibility you have to look after it.
And I shall thank all the cavers who very often come to Oman, those who live in Oman and those who come from outside Oman and contribute to cave exploration in Oman. They are amazing, they're wonderful, they've done a lot of great job for Oman and for the world as well.
Mohammed, we've got a lot of ages watching tonight. So this is a lovely question. So this is Andrew Barrow, who's asking for his granddaughters in England. and Denmark.
Okay.
So this is lovely. So this is a lovely question from a young person. Is Oman rich in animal fossils?
That's a very good question, very smart question from a young, smart, to come scientist or to become scientist. Yes, there are many fossils in Oman. And by the way, in 2009, it was broadcasted worldwide in big news agencies that the first evidence for fossil animals, sponges, natural or sea sponges, was found in Oman. It was dated to be 635 million or 32 or 35 million years old. The first evidence in the world. So the first evidence for the evolution of animals. And since then, Oman had, and that's using chemical traces of sea sponges. Anyways, so, and since then, there have been loads of fossils and that evolved in Oman, dinosaurs, you just name it, and mammals, anthropods, all sorts of types.
Well, maybe you've inspired two very young explorers there for the future. Mohammed,
I'm sure they'll become much better than us.
I have to tell you, you've got a huge following at the moment. The questions are piling in, so we're going to have to. We're getting around out of time, but we're going to do another 5 minutes, okay? I hope you're happy with more questions.
Very happy to do.
This is a lovely. So this is from Haitham Al-Rahi, our good friend, and he's asking a question to help his research. Have you found signs of hyena in the northern Hajar Mountains? So during your explorations, any signs of hyena?
So, yes, that's a very good question. In the eastern Al-Hajar, people have seen them, and we've met many people who said that they saw hyenas. And in fact, one of our friends there, he said that he saw 2 hyenas eating a donkey. And not only him, but a group of his friends. So hyenas do live in the eastern Al-Hajar, that's confirmed, and I think probably many people saw them there. In the western Al-Hajar, people until recently were saying they saw them. A friend of mine there as well, we were visiting a cave with him. He said he photographed, he saw signs for one of the hyenas in one of the remote places near his village. But that's not confirmed. It's a possibility. And hyenas are very good, I guess, in hiding and living in remote places. So yeah, why not? I mean, they could live in Western Al-Hajar. So yes, they do exist in the Al-Hajar Mountains for sure.
Well, I know that Haitham will be very pleased by any findings you find. And if the earth scientists can contribute to the life sciences research, that's a big tick.
Yes.
So, gosh, they're coming in. Abdullah Al-Fadi, any study done in Wadi Maiden Cave in Birkat Al-Muz? So the cave, Maiden Cave in Birkat Al-Muz.
Yes, so one of the most famous caves there in Wadi al-Ma'idin is a cave called Jishat al-Dara. It's quite hard to say for non-Arabic speakers, but it's a beautiful cave, although quite dangerous to access. Actually, it sits somewhere in the middle of a steep cliff. Usually people access it by walking, which is possible, we've done it, but it's quite dangerous because there are some places there along that cliff that can be slippery, and then it's a straight tens of meters fall. So Jishat al-Dara is the most famous cave in Wadi al-Ma'idin, and it's among the caves we documented and surveyed as well. So we have a 2D map for the first time for this cave. It's a famous cave. People had all sorts of myths and mysteries around the cave. So that's the main cave we reported in Wadi al-Ma'idin. There are other smaller caves, but we reported this major one in Wadi al-Ma'idin.
Very good, very potential, very exciting in the future. Our great friend Andy Evis, an international caver, is asking about tourist potential, Mohammed. Which examples of Oman geology should be top of our list? So he's a great caver.
Okay, that's it.
And I know he's very interested to come and be in Oman.
Nigel. Mm-hmm.
So can I just take that question back again? I'll just repeat it for Mohammed.
Okay.
Can that come back up?
I got the question.
Okay,
I got the question, actually, Dr. Nigel. So he was asking about the best places for tourists to come and see in Oman. I would recommend for you for sure to go and visit Wadi al-Jizi if you're at, because it provides this beautiful transect through the ophiolite, where you can see amazing pillow lava, sheeted dikes, and then you get into the mantle sequence as well. So Wadi al-Jizi, if you remember that, please. Jabal Akhdar is also so beautiful as for exposures. Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic exposures in Jabal Akhdar is so beautiful, or are so beautiful. If you want to go to see fjords, recent tectonics, and so on, you might want to go to Musandam in the north. There are also the Dhofar Mountains, obviously, in the south, where you can go and see, beautiful fault escarpment, really enchanting, amazing, breathtaking. And you can see also beautiful sinkholes there and some fossil sites as well, although not as famous as in the North Oman. And if you want to go desert kind of experience, you might want to go and visit the Wahiba Sand or Al-Huquf area, which basically is a remote place, but it includes amazing fossil sites there. Yeah.
Well, I know you'll enjoy working, being put in touch with Andy Evis and his network. And of course, he came out and did some survey work in Majlis Al-Jinn last year too.
My pleasure, Andy. I know Andy, actually. We met.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. So this is from Sarah in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, Sarah. Nice to have you with us from Colorado. So, Mohammed, which other caves would you like to explore around the world?
That's a good question. Lots of very nice caves. There are some caves nearby, actually, in the nearby countries. I would like to go and visit them. But worldwide, I might say the Crystal Cave in Mexico, for instance, the Mammoth Cave in the US. There is a very famous cave, very deep cave in Georgia. I don't know, maybe I will have the chance to visit that one as well in the future. These are the ones that come to my mind. There are many caves as well in Indonesia and other countries in Eastern Asia, which are very nice as well to visit. So these are the main caves I would like to probably go and visit.
I would recommend, Mohammed, if you have a chance, to go and see the caves of the Gunung Mulu National Park in Sarawak, where Shane, my wife, and I had the chance to do research with the Society back in 1977. And there's something like 400 kilometers of cave passage there now. So it's quite an incredible cave system, huge. So keep going. Basil Al-Salti, do you explore any non-sedimentary caves? Do they exist? So an interesting question. Do you explore any non-sedimentary
very interesting
caves?
Question.
Do they exist?
Yes, they do exist, and Basil, and we have in the ophiolite sequence, the lower part of the ophiolite sequence is the mantle, which is one of the deep layers in the earth, to make it simple, and it has olivine, a mineral called olivine, and it usually gets weathered easily. So when it gets weathered, you create cavities within the ophiolite sequence, and these cavities, sometimes they get enlarged by humans or animals as well. So they can create a lot of small caves. And one of the very good examples of these caves is Jarnan Cave in Izki. It's a very famous cave in Oman. It's not a very big cave, but it forms between this ophiolite unit and the gravel on top of it. There are also these mines, ancient mines, copper mines in Oman, caves in the ophiolite sequence, and they also form in igneous, because ophiolite are igneous rocks. So yes, they form within the igneous rocks of Oman. That's one example. Again, salt is a sedimentary rock, but it's not carbonate. So yes, there are also caves that form within the salt units, the Precambrian salt unit of Oman.
Those salt mine images were very powerful in your story, Mohammed. So thank you for that.
Yes,
a very interesting question. Thank you for that. So we're just going to have Mohammed 2 more questions. All right. This one is from a question from 2 people, Alex from Kent and Abdul Munaim in Oman. Both ask, which topics will you be investigating next? So what's your next topic for investigation?
So Alex and Abdul Munaim, I'm quite keen to explore ancient lake deposits in Oman and ancient guano deposits within caves and within ancient sabkha or salt playa. And we've already moved with research grants to explore these. So hopefully we're going to run scientific or research expeditions looking at these deposits and hopefully trying to determine the climatic history hundreds of thousands of years ago. In some of these deposits, we might need to drill cores through them. So yeah, we started that. So hopefully we'll get some good results on that as well.
This is a very important record of climatic change going right back to early times. So you've got a record there that is untouched and available for you to study. So it's an incredible story. Yeah. Well, good luck with that, Mohammed. So this is the last question. Thank you very much for answering all these questions. You've been fantastic. Last question. So this is from an 8-year-old, Joshua in Melbourne. Joshua, thank you for your question. We really appreciate this. Do you have a favorite rock or crystal from your travels? My daughter would be pleased. She loves crystals, so I'll be very interested in your answer. Do you have a favorite rock or crystal? Thank you very much, Joshua.
Okay, Joshua. I think that's a smart question, again, from a smart person, and or young person, I should say. Basically, there are many beautiful, gemstones that attract people. My favorite will go for nephrite, and similar to it is jadeite. They usually used to make jade. And the reason why I pick them is because they've been used since the Neolithic. And Neolithic, by the way, is one of the ancient times or periods, archaeological periods, say around 8,000 years ago, before now. People, at least during the middle Neolithic and probably before that and after that as well, up to date actually, they still use them as gemstones. And they believed that they had some spiritual power within them. And we've picked one of them during one of our expedition, geological and archaeological expeditions in South Oman. And I was amazed that we found them. So it's a small piece of jadeite from the Neolithic. And I was very happy to know that Wilfred Thesiger actually also found, not too far from the place I picked this nephrite from, he also found one specimen back in 1945, I think, and he was also given another specimen by one of the local people in Salalah. So he picked up two, actually. And we ended up collecting a number of these gemstones, and we are publishing a paper about them, of their uses during the Neolithic time. So I would go for nephrite, I would say.
What a lovely answer. That's a lovely answer to end these fantastic questions. You've done really well with those questions. Mohammed, thank you very much. And this is a good opportunity for me to say a personal thank you to you. It's been a great joy working with you on this project. And I'm going to now unashamedly plug your book, Mohammed. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance, if you want to know more about the stories we've heard about today, Mohammed's book on the 800 million story on the life and evolution of Oman's geology is summarized in this lovely book. There'll be details of how to get this lovely book on the Eventbrite emails that I send out. But I really do recommend it because this is where I first saw those first images of that new genus of elephant in Oman, and it's full of very beautiful, well-documented pictures. Congratulations, Mohammed, for that. And it's now time to wrap up. And I know if you're in this hall with me, I look around completely empty, except for the team at the top. If you were here, you would all join me in clapping hands. So wherever you are in the world, I know we're clapping hands to say thank you. So to wrap up, shortly we'll be in safe hands. This year, to give the vote of thanks from Muscat is Dr. Saif Al-Shaksi, the director of the National Field Research Center for Environmental Conservation. And he's here to thank the speakers, the Geological Society, and the Anglo-Omani Society. Before we hand over for the close, may I add my personal thanks on behalf of the UK group, Dr. Roderick Dutton, Sean Nelsons, and Robert Baldwin. We are just a group of 4 volunteers who put these lectures on each year, and we do it because of our love of the Sultanate and our huge faith in this new generation of field scientists, and it's been a great joy. We'd like to add our thanks to Mr. Stuart Lain, the chairman of the Anglo-Omani Society, and all his colleagues there, including Dina and Nick, for making tonight's film and online lectures possible. We continue to be so grateful for your support for field science in the Sultanate of Oman. I'd also like to thank my colleagues at the Oman Embassy for all the help they've done behind the scenes, particularly Mr. Rashid and Rua and Venice. Really appreciate all your help. Also to thank Katie Burton and colleagues at the Geographical magazine for your continued help. We do hope your many readers enjoyed watching online this year. I'm sorry you're not here with us in the hall. And then to thank our technical staff at the Royal Geographical Society who juggled with the new broadcast software and varying internet connection levels. Alfredo, Luciano, Ellie, and in Muscat, Abdul Munaim at the Geological Society. I must now apologize that it was my fault for sending the wrong connections on Eventbrite, and I know for many there were difficulties, but thank you so much for all you've done there. And we will be sending out information about how to see the films in the future. Thank you for your broadcaster partners, Encounter Edu, here seen in the field on their Coral Live broadcast. Thank you, Jamie and Ellie. Good luck on your broadcast geographical wonders into classrooms from all around the world, from every corner of the world. Dr. Saif will be thanking the Geological Society. May I just remind you that if you are interested in getting more involved with the Society, please do contact Mr. Abdul Munaim Al-Zakwani or Dr. Mohammed Al-Kindi of the Geological Society of Oman, and details of that will be posted to all those who are registered. Tonight's lecture can be seen anytime on the Geological Society of Oman's website with a link to their YouTube web link, and we'll be sending that link after this lecture. I now say farewell and thank all of you from all over the world. Over 800 were logged on to watch this lecture. Thank you so much for listening and sending in your excellent questions. Masalama from the Royal Geographical Society here in London. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. It now gives me great pleasure to ask our good friend Dr. Saif Al-Shaksi, a strong supporter of our annual lectures, to give the final vote of thanks. Dr. Saif, over to you in Muscat.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen from all around the world. On behalf of Oman Group in the UK, who have organized tonight's 5th Oman Natural Heritage Lecture, may I express my appreciation to all involved. Firstly, I would like to thank your 2 distinguished speakers, Dr. Mohammed Al-Kindi and Mr. Nabil Al-Saqri, for their most impressive and enjoyable lecture, and films about Oman's unique geology and caves. We have been able to witness tonight the sheer beauty and diversity of Oman's geological heritage, which will be of interest to earth scientists and tourists for many generations to come. We know how hard you work in the field, and we thank you for sharing the results with us tonight. It will be possible to you to see tonight's lecture on the Geological Society of Oman's YouTube in the future. Secondly, I would like to thank Mr. Abdul Mun'im Az-Zakwani and his colleagues at the Geological Society of Oman here in Muscat for making the arrangement in the lockdown and for the broadcast from your home, Dr. Muhammad. We applaud all that is being achieved in Oman to safeguard Oman's unique geological heritage. Please thank all your broadcasting colleagues for making tonight such a success. Thirdly, I would like to thank the Anglo-Omani Society in London for their continued financial support for our annual Oman Natural Heritage and for field research in general. Finally, I am pleased to confirm that our speaker next year, Mr. Nasser Al-Kindi, will focus on Oman's ornithological heritage, and we will learn more about the many hundreds of birds that can be seen in the Sultanate of Oman. This will take place at the Royal Geographical Society on Wednesday, 27th October 2021. From all of us here in Muscat and our friends at the Royal Geographical Society in London, we bid you farewell and good night. Thank you.